Okay, we're gonna watch this video and then I'm gonna see if this brings up anything relevant, and then I'm gonna start to organize around my talking points, I think. Oh, and then I have 2 more things I need to go through quick, hopefully.
Just taking place in Bangladesh.
How is Farage getting away with so many lies?
Breaches of electoral law, Russian interference, foreign funding from billionaires and crypto. Deeply worrying and pretty authoritarian Orban MAGA-style anti-women's rights and abortion agenda, violent rhetoric, close ties to convicted criminals. He just gets away with again and again and again and again.
People assume that Farage is a bit of a bullshitting rogue, and therefore when all this stuff happens, it's sort of rolled into the general picture.
Trump created a media landscape that gives up on proper scrutiny, and I think we're seeing the same develop with Farage. This is a network, and Farage is fundamental to that network. I just wish our bloody media would grow up a bit and start to join a few dots.
Wow.
Welcome to the Restless Politics Question Time with me, Rory Stewart.
And me, Alistair Campbell. And Rory, we're going to talk about Nigel Farage and reform. We're going to talk about elections in Thailand, as we promised last week, but also in Bangladesh. Fascinating election just taking place in Bangladesh. We're going to talk a little bit about Munich, and then I know you want to, having been sort of pretty vile about Keir Starmer on his Munich speech, you want to be nice about him in relation to something else. So we've got lots to get through, but where do you want to start?
I'm going to start with a question from Alison Cohen. How is Farage getting away with so many lies?
Well, it's not just lies. I think Farage gets away with murder. And I think the rise of Reform UK, or what Chris Mason of the BBC likes to call the rise of Reform UK, has actually happened despite and in part because most of the media largely play down, not just the lies, but the controversies and the scandals. We're talking about breaches of electoral law, Russian interference.
Hold on. This guy. This guy. This might be the one. This might be the one that you gotta give me. Holy shit. Holy shit. Holy shit, okay? Holy shit. People in chat are saying William Dafoe. That's not what I'm looking at. That's not the guy I'm looking at. I'm thinking, I don't know what the actor's name is, the guy that played Bishop in Alien. This guy. You gotta give me this one. Come on. You gotta give me this one.
Most of the media largely play down, not just the lies, but the controversies and the scandals. We're talking about breaches of electoral law, Russian interference, his role in Brexit, foreign funding from billionaires and crypto. Deeply worrying, and shout out to Natasha Devon on LBC at the weekend. Pretty authoritarian Orban MAGA-style anti-women's rights and abortion agenda, violent rhetoric, close ties to convicted criminals. We're seeing this with Trump. Trump created a media landscape that gives up, frankly, is slightly giving up on proper scrutiny. And I think we're seeing the same develop with Farage. Now, first of all, let me say, I'm not tarring everybody with the same brush. Pippa Crerar of The Guardian took me to task recently for saying the media are too soft on Farage when papers like The Guardian from time to time really go for them. But there are so many stories, Roy, that if these were about Labour politicians or even Tory politicians, it's not just a right-left thing, they would never be out of the news. And there's another common link, which is hugely underplayed, and that's Epstein.
Stop, I'm eating links. Crip Mac dissed you. Okay, I won't fight with any Crips.
I told you and Destiny, you remember with the blue hair?
Yes.
Which I remember you really like the blue hair.
Yes.
You were the first person that I shared that with.
Yeah, Destiny, I remember her with the blue hair.
No, it was a guy.
Are you sure?
Yeah. He's like a pretty famous streamer.
I don't remember that.
But some people do think he's a girl. Like, just based on the name. You don't remember that?
I don't remember. You're going to show me a clip?
Yeah, I'll show you a picture of
That's strange on these shows these days.
just a guy named Destiny. I know this kind of...
Okay, thank you. I feel dust.
Dean and Steve Bannon, both jailbirds, like George Cottrell, the man Farage calls, like a son, and whose book on money laundering he and other key reform figures attended. But let me just go through a few. 17 breaches of the parliamentary rules by Farage. 17. I don't know how many times you broke the rules. I suspect it was 0. Nathan Gill, I've been banging on about this for yonks and yonks and yonks. There was media interest in Nathan Gill for one day only, the day he went to jail for taking bribes from Russia. The whole crypto world, I think we just don't understand just how deep they are into this. Farage's use of a private company to pay corporation tax on all his outside earnings rather than income tax, which means it's 25%, not 40%. And surprise, surprise, says he won't publish his tax returns if he becomes prime minister. And, then there's all these things that just get forgotten in the midst of times. Farage claimed he never met the Russian ambassador, but he did. He claimed that he bought a house in Clacton, but he hadn't. Aaron Banks, his right-hand man, the bad boy of Brexit, said he'd had one boozy lunch with Russian officials. Then it was 2 or 3, then it was 4. It turns out it's almost a dozen. Richard Tice, the we'll come on to working from home later. Richard Tice, who works from home in Dubai with his lovely wife, Isabel Oakeshott, he had relations with this Russian guy and didn't declare them until the journalists got hold of it. I mean, maybe he was going to register it, but the truth is that he didn't register it until Hope Not Hate, the campaign group, got hold of it and challenged him over it. And then just this week, before you kind of come back at me on some of this, just this week, this pattern of admission and dismissal. So you kind of say, no, we didn't do that. Oh, yeah, well, maybe we did, but does it really matter? And that's helped get rid of an apparent electoral law breach in the by-election taking place in Manchester. And just this week, another one. Repeatedly, Farage, this is his kind of line of the moment, going on radio, going on television, going on social media, saying that 1 million people in Britain cannot speak English, okay? When he knows that is untrue, because he's actually written the true figure in an article in the Daily Telegraph earlier. It's actually 161,000. So whether you go, his warm words for Putin, his apologies for Russian aggression, if you poke the Russian bear with a stick, he'll respond, his endorsement of Andrew Tate, his meeting with Assange, his fundraising to support, get this, a Russian-backed campaign to split California. Now, Farage didn't know at the time necessarily that this was kind of Russian involvement, but it is nonetheless a bit weird. The thing about the press and the media, part of the strategy, this is Natasha Doven made this point in LBC, part of Farage's strategy at the moment is to keep calling press conferences. So the press trot in, and either he gets on the news saying how bad Labour are being that day, or he throws out some new little sort of fireworks. So the other day it was, let's stop all this working from home nonsense. Brackets, one of his big backers is a big office space guy, probably totally unrelated. I'm just asking the question, as Nigel might say. This episode is powered by Fuse Energy.
Most of us are buying energy in the dark, not knowing what it costs.
Whoa.
You wouldn't do that with your weekly food shop, but with energy, you're often charged first and only find out the number later.
When you don't have that clarity, you usually end
I
up
don't have
paying
the time
more
for
than
this, guys, I'm sorry.
.com/politics.
We'll go check it out.
But here's the thing about working from home. His home, work-wise, is Clacton. He's never there. His wife worked from home when he was an MEP. It's the hypocrisy that he just gets away with again and again and again and again. And if you think about when I was a journalist, the local government, let's take local government, we've now got these reform councils, lots of defections, lots of cronyism, lots of stuff, lots of absolute incompetent people doing incompetent things. It barely figures on the national news. When Labour had, do you remember the loony left?
I remember the loony left.
You remember the loony
Derek
left?
Hatton.
Wasn't it? It was like, all the CND stuff and all the kind of, so the loony left became a national media story. Why is reform in local government not getting any national coverage, given we have the rise and rise of reform, and they're basically saying this guy's nailed on as Prime Minister? So is it a fair point, Rory, that this lot get away with murder compared with the other people who want to be Prime Minister, such as Keir Starmer?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's definitely true that somehow you get a sense that different standards are applied. And it is worrying because it's a little bit like Trump. I mean, I think part of the reason he gets away with it is that it's sort of priced in. Voters assume that Farage is a bit of a bullshitting rogue. And therefore, when all this stuff happens, it's sort of rolled into the general picture. And part of the problem for Starmer, I guess, is that Starmer came in on a big message of a sort of moral campaign, challenging the Conservatives, bringing seriousness to government, bringing rectitude. And therefore, it's a more appealing story to a journalist to point to sort of hypocrisy and say, this guy sets himself up as a saint and here's all this stuff going wrong. I think the second thing is that, to be fair for a second, and to try to play the other side, what you're talking about is a very worrying pattern. And, we can develop that a bit. I mean, you didn't talk that much about the funding, but I think one of the things that worries me most is our rules in Britain are so lax in terms of who can give money. You don't actually have to be a British citizen to give money. You just have to be on the electoral register or have to have a UK company. So that theoretically, Elon Musk could people have been exploring this. How could he possibly put £67 million into a campaign through some UK company?
Well, he's now backing Rupert Lowe, apparently. Farage is not quite... He'll end up backing Tommy Robinson, I suspect. And Tommy Robinson, of course, is backing Matt Goodwin in the Manchester by-election. So, but the funding, you're right about the funding.
Thank goodness, still,
Wait, is that true? Does Tommy Robinson back the Goodwin guy? Wait, does Goodwin and Tommy Robinson... That's one of the two things I wanted to go over today is some Tommy Robinson stuff. Is that true? They have like a friendly relationship, or
Matt Goodwin in the Manchester by-election. So, but the funding, you're right about the funding.
Thank goodness, still, we are not in a situation of Farage actually breaking the law. Right? These things are him conflicts of interest, breaking of parliamentary regulations, sailing very close to the wind. But so far, he's not been convicted of a crime. And the parliamentary commissioner has said that he thinks these things are inadvertent. But you're completely right. The general pattern of populism, polarization, post-truth, strange links. I mean, we haven't talked much about these extraordinary revelations of the fact that when I was in Theresa May's government, it turns out that Steve Bannon, right, Trump's big kind of right-hand ideologue, had relocated to Britain and was there cheerfully sending emails saying, I'm meeting Boris Johnson, I'm meeting Nigel Farage, and we're just about to bring down Theresa May, and I've just written a speech for Boris Johnson for his resignation. It's all the stuff when Boris Johnson resigns as Foreign Secretary and they're trying to trigger May to go. I had no idea. I wonder whether Theresa May was aware.
I very much doubt it.
And then where was Dominic Cummings and all this? Because, of course, Dominic Cummings is a figure very much part of the same ecosystem, the same polarizing Brexit, tech bro ecosystem, which Steve Bannon's adjacent to. And of course, he becomes Boris Johnson's chief of staff. So what's all that story? What's that moment going on? Because I came quite innocently into that leadership race against Boris Johnson when Theresa May fell, without any idea that somewhere in the background were these sort of extraordinary figures like Bannon floating around. And of course, in retrospect, presumably Dominic Cummings pushing Boris Johnson's campaign from the beginning.
And the thing about Bannon, of course, if you remember when Brexit happened, and in a rare moment of candour, Nigel Farage was being filmed and turned to the camera and said, here's to you, Steve Bannon, you did this. So that's been going on for a long time. And of course, Steve Bannon, like a lot of these MAGA people, there is an element to him of being a complete bullshitter. And therefore he wants you to think that I can bring down Theresa May, I can get Boris Johnson into power, or what have you. But the truth is, Steve Bannon is fundamental, central to this international network of Orban. You know, we were in Munich the other day, Rubio makes his speech, all the European diplomats go, wasn't that wonderful? He didn't tell us we were terrible. What's the first thing he does? He gets on a plane, he goes to Slovakia and then Hungary to see Orban, to say Trump wants Orban to win the Hungary election. This is a network. And Farage is fundamental to that network. And what he does, what he manages, because of the sort of cheeky chappy, having a fag, having a pint, sort of, you know, just being a kind of cosplaying man of the people, is he manages to sort of dismiss this stuff like Trump does. They all learn from each other. You and I were in Davos. Nigel Farage was in Davos. And Nigel Farage was doing lots of interviews saying, oh, back Donald Trump on this and Keir Starmer's terrible, what have you. None of them, so far as I know, have actually done it. None of the broadcasters who happily had him on air have actually asked the questions and found the answers. Well, who paid for you to be there?
I think if you looked at his past carefully, he wasn't there under his own name. He was actually there as a sort of plus one, as a sort of assistant to a British Iranian businessman.
Yeah. And then you have all this stuff about he's got these links to the crypto world. And then, again, back into Epstein. Epstein, Peter Thiel, celebrating Brexit. This is just the beginning. Epstein and Bannon, Bannon boasting about having all these European parties that are going to do well in the European elections. We can stop any of the regulation for crypto. So I just wish our bloody media would grow up a bit and start to join a few dots, instead of just thinking that Farage is a useful guy to get on day after day after day and say the government is terrible. He did it with the Tories and now he does it with Labour, and that's how they use it.
We also need very, very quickly to get clear campaign finance reform.
Which the government are talking about, aren't they?
They're talking about, but it's not coming through. I mean, if we genuinely are facing a risk of Nigel Farage taking over, we need to build the institutions now to protect democracy properly.
Yeah.
And that means we need to stop non-British nationals being able to pour lots of money in. I personally think, actually, we should stop private individuals and trade unions being able to pour millions of dollars in. We should be following the South Australia model. We should put very clear rules about crypto. Crypto is a very...
What? Is South Australia a part of the UK or something? What the fuck is South Australia?
It's being able to pour millions of dollars in. We should be following the South Australia model. We should put very clear rules about...
Oh, it's a state in Australia. Okay.
Crypto is a very strange thing. Very difficult to trace. What are the origins of things? We should have much clearer views on declarations. I mean, what we're seeing again and again, part of this stuff we're seeing with Farage, you know, who's paying for his trips, how they're being declared. We saw this in spades with Mandelson. You know, people not declaring, getting on private planes, and then completely changing the way in which ministers are trained on security. So I was very surprised when I became a minister and when I ended up eventually on the National Security Council, that I didn't get anything like the briefing that I got when I was a diplomat. So when I, as a 21-year-old, joined the government, there were very, very clear training around the Official Secrets Act, the sensitivity of information, how to protect sources, how to make sure there weren't conflicts of interest. Certainly in my day, ministers simply didn't get the same seriousness and depth that people reinforcing that they're dealing with the most sensitive information in the world that could put agents' lives at risk, that could allow wealthy bankers to make millions of pounds. So absolutely with Farage, but I'd also like someone to come up with a solution. I mean, as well as us identifying the problem, how do we put the principles and policies in place now to make sure that our politics is cleaner in the future than it is now?
The fact that it needs to be cleaner, there's no doubt about that. And, Gordon Brown on the back of the Epstein stuff and Peter Mandelson came out and had all sorts of proposals. As I said at the time, I worried that was sort of tarring them all with the same brush, like, Pippa Crerar, I think I do sometimes with the media. But let me just give you another example of the double standard here. Let's imagine that I, or Peter Mandelson, or somebody who was associated with New Labour, wrote a book called How to Launder Money. And let's imagine that Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, Keir Starmer, David Lammy, Yvette Cooper all turn up.
Okay, this is just going to be a video complaining about the state of UK politics. I don't think I'm going to get anything new from this, right?
Up at the launch of our book, How to Launder Money. So George Cottrell, who is this guy that Nigel Farage says is like a son to him, who's been...
Okay, quick meme. What is this?
Roger Waters.
Oh, Roger Waters. Okay, this is at the Coliseum in L.A.
How many years ago?
80,000 people. 20 years ago. I don't know. Whenever he went out and did the wall, his extravaganza of the wall.
Okay.
And some of my crew guys were on the gig.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting behind the thing with the ultimate spot. With the front of house strip, the front house mixer, and some of the lighting guys I knew, some of the and the monitor guy was our guy. God bless him, he passed away. And a lovely guy. And he got me great. He set me up. And so second or third tune, man, his mic went out. His lead vocal mic. Now you're talking about a production that had to be $100 million production. It was so
how many
over the
people are
top.
on stage?
Well, I don't know how many. They're all hitting all over the place, When you have a show
I don't care about that much. Okay. Charlottesville riots. I want to talk about fascism. I'm in the room. Don't care. All right. The Unite the Right rally was a white supremacist rally that took place in Charlottesville, Virginia from August 11th to 12th. Marchers included members of the alt-right, the organizer's stated goals included the unification of American white nationalist movements and opposing the proposed removal of the statue of General Robert E. Lee. Okay, wait. Wasn't there a more normal march right before this? Or was this literally the only one there? There's no way this was the only one there, right? Wait, fuck. I thought there was a normal one the day before, and then this one was next. Oh shit, that makes it even worse. if that's the case. Wait, hold on. Charlottesville riot, or Charlottesville march, Robert E. Lee. Um, 2017. I don't know what I'm... March? Riot? Was this really the only...
Hello everyone. This is a video...
Oh god. Timeline of the 2020 protests in Charlottesville and the political fallout that followed. Jesus Christ. Oh my god. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I don't know any fucking Nazi symbols ever. Apparently, everything is a Nazi symbol. Should I recognize anything here? Is this a fucking? Isn't this just like the some Confederate bullshit? I don't know. There's the Confederate shit and some KKK and fucking Nazi shit and. Neo-Confederate groups.
Stay to the side.
10 o'clock Friday night, hundreds of white nationalists storming the University of Virginia, protesting plans to remove a statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee. The overnight violence spilling into this morning when marchgoers and counter-protesters clash again, hours before the Unite to Right march was even set to begin. Just after 10:30 a.m., the crowd growing in size. Local and state police in riot gear responding in force, but the violence escalating. Just before noon, Virginia's governor declaring a state of emergency. Just before 2 p.m., the situation taking that deadly turn.
You can see the silver 2010 Dodge Challenger barreling down the hill toward a sea of targets with little time to react, slamming to a stop only after it hit a van and another car. Locked in, that car shifting in reverse, screeching back down the street to get away. One person, a 32-year-old woman, left dead. 19 more rushed to the hospital, 5 in critical condition. The suspected driver, 20-year-old James Alex Fields Jr., is behind bars.
The first response from the White House came not from the president, but the First Lady. She tweeted, "Our country encourages freedom of speech, but let's communicate without hate in our hearts."
We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides. On many sides.
Senator Ted Cruz put out his own statement calling the attack a grotesque act of domestic terrorism. Senator John McCain tweeted, "White supremacists aren't patriots, they're traitors."
Racism is evil, and those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly. Now, in the other group also, you had some fine people, but you also had troublemakers. I think if we continue to create jobs at levels that I'm creating jobs, I think that's going to have a tremendously positive impact on race relations. I do.
And the hurt is still there. That's what
2
community
years
members
later.
in Charlottesville are saying 2 years after a deadly rally changed their community.
It was today in 2017 when James Fields Jr. plowed multiple people down with his car, killing Heather Heyer and hurting dozens of others who were protesting against white supremacist groups.
10 News reporter Magdala Lusant joins us live tonight where that tragic incident happened. Magdala?
The pain is still felt here. The city has closed this road down. Behind me is a memorial where a handful of people have been stopping by to leave flowers and notes for Heather. Many of them telling me today they have not forgotten what happened here. 2 years later.
Bad memories. What happened?
Aaliyah Jones finds it hard to...
One people, one nation, and immigration.
We're honoring the founding fathers who were white. We're honoring all of the great white men who are being smeared and defamed and torn down.
This march was also for another white nationalist rally expected to draw thousands. Were there tweets or were there things back then on, it would have been like Parler or whatever else from any like white identitarian or white nationalist or neo-Nazi leaders that were making calls for people to join this or anything? Do we have any of that? Oh, Gab maybe might have been back then.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States.
From W.
Okay, what the fuck is the Tiki Torch thing also? Is this like a KKK thing or what is the origination of the Tiki Torch thing?
High energy, high anti-communism levels, huh?
Okay, so this happened in the twilight hours of the 12th, right? So like past midnight or the night of the 11th, twilight hours of the 12th. When was Heather Hayes, I guess, ran over? Was that earlier on the 11th? Heather Hayes, death. Wait, is it not Heather Hayes? Heyer? Heather Heyer? This was on August 12th. So it would have been the next day. It said the date. It said when she died. It didn't say when she stopped. Jesus, fuck. Okay. That's okay. That's all right. We're good. We got it. Okay. Former Proud Boys recruit and Charlottesville resident Jason Kessler obtained the original permit for the Unite the Right rally and briefly became a nationally recognized figure in its fallout. His stature in the movement and the broader culture collapsed in the years that followed. Spencer. Baked Alaska. Jesus Christ. Why do you have to look like this as like a white nationalist or whatever? Why not? Like, holy fuck. You look like the guy who's cast to be like the racist dude in some fucking movie made by, fuck! I can't remember the guy's name. Ah, fuck. I had a better joke there. Who's the guy who did Black Klansman? He makes movies about like civil rights issues and all this bullshit or whatever, right? Am I making this up? Spike Lee? There we go. Fuck! Life imitates art. Okay. Trump. Good people on both sides. So when did he make this comment? People on both sides. Is this... So if this is the morning of the 12th, that's rough.
Putting what you're calling the alt-left and white...
What is the date on this? This is August 15th. Okay. Are they going to refer to the... Because with their... So after the night of marching, on the 11th to the 12th, these were the Tiki Torch marches. You had more protests or riots or marches the next day or days, because Heather Heyer was hit on the 12th. Perpetrated on August 12th. Were there more marches? Maybe. Could Trump have been referring to it? This video was on the 15th. Destiny, that's me. Trump's full press conference following the Charlottesville. Right, this is a year later. Trump made the statement at 3:45 p.m., 2 hours after the vehicle rammed the crowd. Wait, really? Trump, hold on. No, I'm looking, the both sides comment is what people get really, really triggered about. That there's a lot of fighting about. Constantine has made a video about it. Okay, so on the 15th, he's defending his comments that he made on the 12th. That's what it is. Okay.
You're putting what you're calling the alt-left
Okay, so this was the 15th.
and white supremacists on the same moral plane.
I'm not putting anybody on a moral plane. What I'm saying is this. You had a group on one side and you had a group on the other, and they came at each other with clubs, and it was vicious, and it was horrible, and it was a horrible thing to watch.
So the only possible thing he could have been referring to here would have been on the night of the 11th, right? Is there any other possible thing? Now, I know there were counter-protesters that showed up, for sure, but it was all of the Nazi, neo-Nazi people and everything else. There's no other march you could have been referring to, right?
And it was vicious, and it was horrible, and it was a horrible thing to watch. But there is another side. There was a group on this side, you can call them the left, or you've just called them the left. that came violently attacking the other group. So you can say what you want, but that's the way it is.
On both sides, sir, you said there was hatred, there was violence on both sides.
Well, I do think there's blame. Yes, I think there's blame on both sides. You look at both sides. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either. And if you reported it accurately, you would say.
Neo-Nazis started this. They showed up in Charlottesville. They showed up in Charlottesville.
Excuse me.
Protest.
Excuse me. They didn't put themselves down as doing, and you had some very bad people in that group.
They showed up in Charlottesville.
Excuse me.
Protest.
Excuse me. They didn't put themselves down as doing, and you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert.
Can somebody find me, where are the three conservatives to watch me? Can somebody find me anything of that? Were there any other marches or anything prior to that wasn't the Unite the Right people that were marching or protesting for the Robert E. Lee thing? Was there anybody else marching there?
Robert E. Lee to another name. No, George Washington was a slave owner. Was George Washington a slave owner? So will George Washington now lose his status? Are we going to take down? Excuse me. Are we going to take down statues to George Washington? How about Thomas Jefferson? What do you think of Thomas Jefferson? You like him? Okay, good. Are we going to take down the statue? Because he was a major slave owner. Now we're going to take down his statue. So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history. You're changing culture. And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly. Now, in the other group also, you had some fine people, but you also had troublemakers, and you see them come with the black outfits and with the helmets and with the baseball bats. You had a lot of bad people in the other group too.
Unfairly, sorry, I didn't understand what you were saying. You were saying the press has treated white nationalists unfairly? I didn't understand what you were saying.
There were people in that rally, and I looked the night before. If you look, there were people protesting very quietly the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. I'm sure in that group there were some bad ones. The following day, it looked like they had some rough, bad people, neo-Nazis, white nationalists, whatever you want to call them. But you had a lot of people in that group that were there to innocently protest, and very legally protest, because, you know, I don't know if you know, they had a permit. The other group didn't have a permit. So
the permit that that has to be the Unite the Right people, because those are the ones who got the permit, unless there's another permit, right?
Let me tell you this. There are two sides to a story. I thought what took place was a horrible moment for our country, a horrible moment. But there are two sides to the country. Does anybody have a final? Does anybody have? You have an infrastructure.
What makes you think you can get an infrastructure bill? You didn't get health care.
Well, you know, I'll tell you. We came very close with health care. Unfortunately, John McCain decided to vote against it at the last minute. You'll have to ask John McCain why he did that. But we came very close to health care. We will end up getting health care, but we'll get the infrastructure. And actually, infrastructure is something that I think we'll have bipartisan support on. I actually think Democrats will go along with the infrastructure.
Hey there, thanks for checking out.
The KKK rally in Charlottesville on July 8th. Okay. Jesus.
Terribly different. It wasn't terribly different from what he's said before. It has a lot of kumbaya and a lot of kind of nostalgia to it. We need to rediscover these bonds that we've had together. I mean, I don't. Does anyone really believe that?
You don't believe that was a condemnation?
Of me? No.
Why?
Because I'm not the KKK. I don't engage in violence, and I don't want to rule over other races. So it's not
a message about racism and violence that resulted in the death of a young woman. How could you be in two minds about what he was trying to say?
Look, I mean, I'm not in two minds. I mean, it's just he was saying vague statements that don't have a lot of meaning, to be honest.
Okay. I want to bring this up to Constantine because we don't realize it over here on the left because we don't talk about this much, but a lot of people on the right have a very strong feeling that this entire event was misrepresented and that Trump was actually very critical of the neo-Nazi people there. And this is one of the biggest like moments in media when they realized the left all lies. That might be this clip. Is it this one?
Fine, call me right wing.
No, fuck, I don't think it's this one. Oh my God.
For years, I've aggressively rejected the label of conservative.
Fuck, does anybody have... It's a 6-minute Constantine clip. That he posted on Twitter, or video.
And right wing, not only because it was being used as a smear in elite discourse, but also because it doesn't accurately reflect how I think. My political journey is best summarized by this cartoon from my friend Colin Bright at Reality's Last Stand. That said, being right wing was never a term of insult to me because it has never occurred to me that half of every country in the world is evil. What we should.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, it's me.
On August 12, 2017, a neo-Nazi deliberately drove his car into a crowd of left-wing protesters in Charlottesville, Virginia, killing a 32-year-old woman called Heather Heyer and injuring 35 others. America and the rest of the world were on a knife edge. The victims were assembled to counter the Unite the Right rally, a demonstration against the proposed removal of a statue of Robert E. Lee, a Confederate general.
Oh, okay. So this is how he gets away with it. So that's just a fucking lie, right? Is there any, like, can I see, like, marketing material or something having to do with the Unite the Right, like, who it was? Because he's just saying it was like a general protest rally, but I mean, we've seen the videos. Like, where? Protesters and counter-protesters began gathering as early as 8 a.m. Emancipation Park. White nationalist protesters again. Some white Confederate flags. Other posts. The Goyim no. The Jewish media is going down. Video. What do we got? March on Charlottesville, Virginia. Unite the Right. Are these like, is this fucking a Nazi bird or the fucking thing or whatever? Yeah. Show me, link me what the symbol is or whatever. Pan down and look at the people. Yeah, I see all your Pepes, right? These are Pepes. Called the Reich Sadler. Is that what that's supposed to be? Hold on. Okay. Is it? It is, right? Are you sure it doesn't? It's not some other fucking bullshit ass symbol or whatever? Because they don't have like the swastika thing, but maybe that's to keep it a little bit more mask on. Fuck. What was Soy Pill's video on this? I had it up and now I closed it and I don't know what it was fucking titled.
President Trump.
1524. We'll run through that real fast. It's Trump's Fine People hoax.
Hey, it's me, the Soy Pill. Sorry for everyone that wanted the Donald Trump is racist video. Instead, I threw a dart at the Santa list of racist things he's done, and we're doing that one. 8 years after Charlottesville, and I still hear this line being used. The Fine People hoax, referring to the media lie that Trump called neo-Nazis fine people. Newly approved White House press member Tim Pool included it in his embarrassing sycophantic question, wow, the media sure is mean to Donald Trump, isn't it, Mrs. Press Secretary?
Many of these organizations that are represented in this room have marked in lockstep on false narratives, such as the Very Fine People hoax, the Covington smear, and now what's being called the Maryland Man hoax. I'm wondering if you could comment on the unprofessional behavior, as well as elaborate if there's any plans to expand access to new companies. How embarrassing.
You would think that we could stop talking about Charlottesville, but it will probably be a pivotal moment in the history books, as it's allegedly the impetus for Joe Biden to run in 2020.
He said there were, quote, some very fine people on both sides. That's why today I'm announcing my candidacy for president of the United States.
And it's the time that white nationalism reared its ugly fangs in public before becoming the stupidest version of itself. But the Fine People quote is not a hoax. In fact, the Fine People hoax is a hoax. And I'll show you why. I shouldn't have to make this video. YouTuber Sean has 2 very good videos on Charlottesville, but for some reason, they didn't take for a portion of the beanie population. Is it because he's British? Because the only people who watched it already agreed with him? Does some of you need a non-British, slightly bridge-building approach? Actually, that's a good idea. First, I want to make an appeal to you Trump supporters who think the media unfairly reports on Trump. That's right. I'm going to plug my nose and defend Trump for 60 seconds. Liberals, close your ears. You know how everyone says that he mocked this disabled reporter?
You gotta see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember.
This looks really bad. He's flailing his hands around in a way that suggests imitation of Sergei Kovaleski and his congenital joint condition. But I actually don't think he was calling that guy out specifically. He's done it multiple times since.
They said, Senator Cruz, what do you think of waterboarding? I don't want to talk about it.
Though some say that that's him trying to obfuscate the reporter example. But he also did it a month before.
When you see the president of the bank, I mentioned the word regulated.
And to someone else in the same speech before the reporter.
I watched the general recently on television, and they said to him, what do you think about it? I said, oh, ISIS is very dumb.
It seems like this hand-shaking stim is a thing that Trump does for many people, regardless of their joint health. So he probably wasn't singling this guy out. It turns out he makes fun of all sorts of people by flailing around and pretending he's physically and or mentally disabled. It's like if he called everyone he hated retarded, and then one day called a mentally disabled reporter that he didn't like retarded, which is better? So now that I've established my shareability, before we get to Trump's comments, it's important that we talk about the background of the Charlottesville protest, because it adds vital context to his comments. The Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville was a protest against the city's removal of the statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee. It was part of a movement to remove multiple Confederate statues in response to the 2015 Charleston shooting of a black church, which, despite what my racist uncle told me, was inspired by racist hatred for black people, and not this Childish Gambino music video that came out 3 years later. Some people argued that by taking down statues, they were erasing history, and it was part of the left-wing greater movement to rewrite narratives and change language to fit their worldview. But no one was asking us to forget the Confederacy existed. It was very specifically about the statues. Imagine you had a school bully, and every day he beat you up, gave you swirlies, stole your lunch money, hit on your hot mom, and then he got hit by a car or something. So his dad commissioned a statue of him in the middle of the school quad, and every day you had to get up and see that brutal reminder of all the trauma he caused you. Now imagine, instead of bullying just you, he bullied every black person in America. And by bully, I mean enslaved and tortured and brutalized and fought to the death to keep it that way. Can you see why these statues are kind of fucked up? Why a bunch of people don't really like having them around? Now it's important to note that these statues weren't put up right after the Civil War to commemorate these men's brave dedication to preserving slavery. Here's a timeline of when Confederate statues were built. Wow, there really is a graph for everything. You'll see 2 spikes of statues being built. One in the early 1900s during the establishment of Jim Crow laws, and the other in the 50s and 60s during the Civil Rights Movement. Many of these statues were funded by the Daughters of the Confederacy, started by actual descendants of Confederate veterans. Now I could do a whole video on these assholes, but their greatest moments include promoting the Lost Cause movement, aka the idea that slavery was actually super cool and the Civil War was about states' rights, restricting their membership to whites only, and lionizing and honoring the KKK. I understand people who see these as an important part of American history, but just know that most of them are there to spite black people getting rights. And we're not going to start redacting history books like the Epstein files that Trump will never release. Germans do a pretty good job of remembering the Holocaust without 10,000 Hitler statues. I think we can do it too. So other than these angels, what other groups were opposed to the statue's removal? The Unite the Right rally was incepted and organized by Jason Kessler. Kessler is a neo-Nazi who was so racist that the Proud Boys had to eject him.
The alt-right is a threat to the establishment. We're talking about the people who run the media. We know that there's disproportionate Jewish influence. We'll talk about the fact that there are biological differences in race. White people have a right to...
Kessler is the guy who got the permit, right? That's what we saw, I think. He was the one who got the permit.
Organize, and that if we don't do so, we're going to be replaced and we don't have a future for our people.
And with regards to the Confederacy, said, our entire country would be better off if the South had won the Civil War. His rally had a legal background of being a hate rally. It was initially barred by the city from being held in Lee Park due to safety concerns, but a judge ruled the day before that the city wanted to move the rally because of the white nationalist views of Kessler, and not just for safety or logistics, and that it could be held in Lee Park, a decision supported by the ACLU, which, for those of you who don't know, famously fight for even the most bigoted of views to be expressed under the First Amendment. Now at this point you may be thinking, okay, so a neo-Nazi organized this thing, but I, or others I know, don't like the removal of statues, and just because we align on those things doesn't mean that we're neo-Nazis. And you'd be right. Am I a Nazi because I like dogs and Hitler liked dogs? Of course not. I'm a Nazi because it was the only way to survive prison. But this is why it's important to look at the timeline of events and who was participating. I bet you're already frustrated looking at all this background information and realizing that you never had the totality of information on your side. It's so hard to choose who to trust between the mainstream media and this one guy with a beanie. What if instead you didn't trust one source but looked at many different sources at once using Ground News? Every day, Ground News gathers thousands of news articles from around the world and organizes them by story in one.
Voices have focused on the humanitarian milestone. They even have a blind spot feature so you can see what one side of the media is covering and what they're ignoring. Boy, am I glad I went to ground.news/the soy pill. I got 40% off the Vantage plan. And I feel way smarter than all the other guys who just get the news from TikTok and that little boy who shouts things on the corner. It sounds so good, I want to say it a second time. Ground.news/the soy pill. Just rolls off the tongue. Great work, Jimmy. Stay informed.
August 11th was the night before the planned protest at the...
Wait. Let me use the restroom real quick. Hold on.
Statue. And the night of the infamous Tiki Torch rally. Hundreds of neo-Nazis carried flaming torches and marched through University of Virginia's campus. We know they're neo-Nazis thanks to them saying neo-Nazi things like Jews will not replace us,
Jews will not replace us,
and blood and soil.
Blood and soil, blood and soil.
Brawls ensued between these neo-Nazis and the counter-protester students, and the next morning, Trump tweeted out, "We all must be united and condemn all that hate stands for," which is a very vague platitude, and may or may not have something to do with the fact that a large portion of the white nationalist alt-right base supports him, especially considering that he appointed Steve Bannon, proponent of the alt-right, as his chief strategist. And he has a history of reluctance to denounce these groups, like when he struggled to denounce the KKK until reporters rubbed his face in it.
Will you unequivocally condemn David Duke and say that you don't want his vote or that of other white supremacists in this election?
I don't know anything about David Duke.
I guess the question from the Anti-Defamation League is, there are these groups and individuals endorsing you. Would you just say unequivocally you condemn them and you don't want their support?
Well, I have to look at the group. I mean, I don't know what group you're talking about. Certainly, I would disavow if I thought there was something wrong. But you may have groups in there that are totally fine.
Okay, I mean, I'm just talking about David Duke and the Ku Klux Klan here, but...
I don't know, honestly, I don't know David Duke. One of the great memories of all time.
Now, August 12th was the day of the actual protest, and there's not exactly statistics on the views of every protester here. Really, I don't even know how you'd find this out. Just go around asking people, "Hey buddy, Heil Hitler?" No? How about you? Heil Hitler? Oh yeah, this guy knows what I'm talking about. It may in fact be true that some people just really wanted to preserve the statue of slavery defender Robert E. Lee. Perhaps the non-Nazi people didn't see these specific promotional posters that featured the names of neo-Nazis like white nationalist Richard Spencer or white nationalist Mike Enoch. Maybe they never
Oops, I didn't even read the names on that poster. I was so busy looking at the iconography. Wait, link me that poster again?
questioned that the movement they were supporting was being promoted by David Duke of the KKK, also a scheduled speaker.
Honestly, I don't know David Duke.
Maybe they missed the headlines ahead of time from the media that said, Charlottesville prepares for a white nationalist rally on Saturday.
That's a good one. Wait.
I'm from the media that said, Charlottesville
Stop. Let's see, featuring names like Richard. I wonder if he's going to fight me on this. Richard Spencer, Mike Enoch, and Jason Kessler, who at the time, all of these people were pretty openly like white identitarian, white nationalist types. Pivotal moment for the pro-white movement in America. God damn. Okay. I've got the link. If you posted it in chat, I've clicked the link. I know that you guys don't think I click any of the links, but I clicked them. I promise you don't have to post a link 30 million times. I promise you have clicked it. Okay? Jesus. All right. NDGG chat. Okay.
Charlottesville prepares for a white nationalist rally on Saturday. Maybe when marching around that day, they didn't notice that they were side by side with white nationalist groups like the actual KKK, Identity Europa, the Daily Stormer, people Nazi saluting, people holding Nazi flags of various varieties, people chanting things like gas the kikes, race war now. Now call me crazy, but if I went to a Bernie Sanders rally and saw one, if not all of these things there, I would leave and denounce Bernie Sanders as a virulent anti-Semite. Who long has the 1% owned the vast majority of slaves. I'd also like to highlight this quote from Robert Trakinski, a self-described statue defender, who said, "I live in the Charlottesville area, and I know very fine people who oppose the removal of the monuments based on high-minded notions about preserving history. I'm one of them. So I know that we weren't there that night. Only the white nationalists were there." And this is where we can finally bring Trump's first vocal comments in. 2 hours after his vague tweet, he held a press conference, which he opened like this.
We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence on many sides. On many sides.
Notice that everything up till many sides is what was written on his paper, and he himself added the many sides part because he personally felt the need to make that equivalence. This is before the fine people comment, and may in fact be worse, as he's drawing some false equivalence between people there to counter-protest a rally organized by neo-Nazis and neo-Nazis. Now, what bigotry existed on the counter-protester side, we aren't sure, because Trump didn't say. But if someone can provide me with footage of the BLM tiki torchers running around chanting "Jews will not replace us," let me know and I'll amend the video. Trump also said,
"We must love each other, respect each..."
Are there any, so he talks about like all the violent people with bats and everything. Is there video footage or is there hospital records or anything? Did anybody on the right get like injured or killed or anything else besides the Heather Heyer thing?
Each other and cherish our history and our future together.
Notice he slips in that history bit, as if to chastise the counter-protesters or anyone who wanted these Confederate statues down, and give credence to the idea that wanting to keep them up is just about preserving history. Just to remind you, neo-Nazis organized this protest, and they want these statues up because they lionize the enslavement of black people. And finally, when the reporters asked him to denounce the white nationalists, he ignored them and walked away.
Mr. President, a number of the white nationalists...
Mr. President, do you want the support of these white nationalist groups who say they support you, Mr. President?
Mr. President,
have you denounced them strongly enough?
Neo-Nazi magazine, The Daily Stormer...
What day was this? What was the date of this?
Statues up because they lionize the enslavement of black people. And finally, when the reporters asked him to denounce the white nationalists, he and neo-Nazis. Now, what bigotry existed on the counter-protester side, we aren't sure, because Trump didn't say. But if someone can provide me with footage of the BLM tiki torchers running around chanting "Jews will not replace us," let me know and I'll amend the video. Trump also said,
"We must love each other, respect each other, and cherish our history and our future together."
Notice he slips in that history bit, as if to chastise the counter-protesters or anyone who wanted these Confederate statues down, and give credence to the idea that wanting to keep them up is just about preserving history. Just to remind you, neo-Nazis organized this protest, and they want these statues up because they lionize the enslavement of black people. And finally, when the reporters asked him to denounce the white nationalists, he ignored them and walked away.
Mr. President, a number of the white nationalists...
Mr. President, do you want the support of these white nationalist groups who say they support you, Mr. President?
Mr. President,
have you denounced them strongly enough?
Neo-Nazi magazine, The Daily Stormer, was pleased with Trump's response, saying he refused to even mention anything to do with us. When reporters were screaming at him about white nationalism, he just walked out of the room.
Fuck. Is this website still up? That's a good quote. Is the Daily Stormer still up, or did that... This was all on August 12th. Okay. Stop. Is this archive site down? Whatever. Anglin. Is that like a white nationalist guy? Or an author of the Daily Stormer? Oh, Andrew Anglin. Is that him? Founder.
They were happy he didn't call them out and felt bolstered by it, just like the Proud Boys when he told them to stand back and stand by.
But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Give me a
white
name. Go ahead.
supremacists
Who
and
would you
white
like me to condemn?
white supremacists and white
Proud Boys. Stand back and stand by.
Now, up until this point, Trump has not called neo-Nazis fine people, but it's not a hoax that he refused to denounce white supremacists, drew an equivalence between neo-Nazis and counter-protesters, and gave legitimacy to a protest that was organized by neo-Nazis. And I think this alone is enough to disqualify him from any sort of legitimacy going forward.
But I'm not done yet.
So most people were rightfully upset, including people on the Republican side who put pressure on Trump to not make such a limp dick statement that barely even addressed the actual problem. Republican Senator Hatch said, "We should call evil by its name. My brother didn't give his life fighting Hitler for Nazi ideas to go unchallenged here at home." Chris Christie said, "Everyone in leadership must speak out." Ted Cruz, fucking Ted Cruz, called on the Department of Justice to investigate and prosecute the car ramming, calling it a grotesque act of domestic terrorism. Do you know how weak your statement has to be for me to use Ted Cruz as a good example? Ted Cruz's family doesn't even like Ted Cruz.
Not a day goes by that my mom is not lifting me up in prayer. That's right. For hours at a time.
So 2 days after doing absolutely nothing to call out the neo-Nazis specifically, Trump finally caved to pressure and read this statement off of a teleprompter.
We condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence. Racism is evil, and those who cause violence in its name are criminals and thugs, including the KKK, neo-Nazis, white supremacists, and other hate groups.
He repeated the violence line without the on many sides part, and overall denounced the racism and hate groups. But even after that, the question remained, why did it take him 2 days to say this?
That was August 14th.
His statements were also wooden and hollow. As opposed to Trump's usual rambunctious speeches, it gained him the reputation of authenticity and telling it like it is.
What he and Kamala really think of our supporters, he called them garbage. No way. No way. Racism is evil. 250 million Americans are not garbage, including the KKK.
It's almost like he's being forced to say it, like a child whose mom makes him say sorry.
Go on.
Sorry.
People might point to this speech and say, see, he said the thing you wanted him to say, which in isolation is good, but knowing how long it took him to say it, how clearly forced and inauthentic it seemed compared to his other speeches, and what he said right before this left many unsatisfied, especially when he refused to address the context. Even Richard Spencer dismissed Trump's second statement as hollow and said that he believed that Trump had not denounced either the alt-right movement or white nationalism. And finally, 3 days later, we come to the Fine People speech, which was supposed to be a speech about the economy, but reporters were finally able to ask him questions. Notice that when repeating his original statement, he leaves out the many sides part again, almost like he knows how bad it looks.
As I said on, remember, the Saturday, we condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence.
But after fighting with reporters for a while, he just couldn't help himself. So here's the famous clip with all of the context.
And you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay?
And this is the crux of calling it the Fine People hoax, because while most of the media accurately reported on his statements, some people referred to this moment as Trump called neo-Nazis fine people. Yeah, he did call out
white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay?
And this is the crux of calling it the Fine People hoax, because while most of the media accurately reported on his statements, some people referred to this moment as Trump called neo-Nazis fine people. Yeah, he did call out white supremacists directly in this speech. And yeah, he didn't verbatim say, I, Donald Trump, love Nazis and Hitler and the KKK, and think they're very cool actually. But this is to ignore all the context I just showed you about who organized it, the speakers, the flags, who actually murdered someone, and everything else that happened in Charlottesville that made it blatantly obvious that this was a white nationalist rally populated by almost exclusively white nationalists and maybe some very blind and deaf statue lovers. None of that is in dispute. In the face of all that, Donald Trump said that there were fine people on both sides, when one side was neo-Nazis. And on top of that, he also said,
there were people in that rally, and I looked the night before, they were people protesting very quietly the taking down of the statue of Robert.
Oh, wait. This is before the car accident. How do you salvage that? Who did he see the night before? That was the tiki torches. Who could he possibly be referring to there? What the fuck? Who is he talking about?
Sides, when one side was neo-Nazis. And on top of that, he also said,
there were people in that rally, and I looked the night before, they were people protesting very quietly the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee.
So even when referring to the night before, August 11th, the rally where the only people there were the neo-Nazi torch-carrying ones, he still said that there were good people on that side. And cherry on top, he knew that they had a permit.
I don't know if you know, they had a permit.
You know, the one that
the one that Kessler got, right?
was held up due to Kessler being a neo-Nazi and approved after acknowledging that despite him being a neo-Nazi, he should still have the right to protest.
When I make a statement, I like to be correct.
If Trump supporters still want to cope here, I guess you can stay believing that he's genuinely so stupid that even the entire intelligence apparatus of the White House couldn't convince him of something so plainly obvious. And now that man is running the country.
There was no way of making a correct statement that early.
So notice the trap of the right calling it the fine people hoax. The media narrative was never Trump said verbatim that neo-Nazis are fine people. But if you didn't read these articles and you just heard the fine people comment, you may have just repeated the idea Donald Trump called neo-Nazis fine people. Like Adam Conover, who knows absolutely nothing about this, giving Tim Pool a win.
The very fine people hoax? I remember the line, yeah.
Trump never called Nazis fine people.
He said there were very fine people on both sides?
Except the neo-Nazis and white nationalists who should be condemned totally.
He said that?
Holy shit! You don't read the fucking news! This is what fucking blows my mind!
No, I just don't have
Even though, as per Tim's usual reading skills, he did not scroll down to read the paragraph that said this. Editor's note.
The Snopes thing is crazy. I cannot believe that Snopes even wrote this fucking article.
Some readers have raised the objection that this fact check appears to assume that Trump was correct in stating that there were very fine people on both sides of the Charlottesville incident. That is not the case. This fact check aimed to confirm what Trump actually said, not whether what he said was true or false. For the record, virtually every source that covered the Unite the Right debacle concluded that it was conceived of, led by, and attended by white supremacists, and that therefore Trump's characterization was wrong.
You don't read the fucking news!
Obviously, it's good to give the context and to discredit people like Tim Pool as bad faith liars. Oh hey look, it's a picture of Tim Pool trying to hide his face while he sits with several neo-Nazis, some of whom were at the Charlottesville rally. But it's also important to recognize the Obviously, it's good to give the context and to discredit people like Tim Pool as bad faith liars. Oh hey look, it's a picture of Tim Pool trying to hide his face while he sits with...
Okay, hello?
Oh, dog, can you hear me?
Hi. Okay, there's one thing that drives me fucking crazy that is part of my personal martyrdom when it comes to fighting, fake news, bullshit, stuff that I will never give up, like the J6 insurrection stuff, COVID stuff, whatever, okay? Another one of these is, I don't know if you're aware of this, I think you are, because I'm watching a video you made on it, and I know you've talked about it before, but you understand the entire, liberal media establishment completely capitulated on the very fine people comment?
They capitulated insofar as they said, hey, actually he didn't say this verbatim.
Yeah, there's fact check sites and most liberal media's yeah, we fucked that one up. Who could you tell me in the strongest and the most steeliest of steelmen possible, who the fuck was Trump referring to when he said there were some very fine people there the night before Heather Hayes got ran over? Who could he have possibly been referring to when that was the Tiki Torch marches, the Unite the Right Kessler? Who? Can you tell me who?
Oh, yeah, I don't think there's a good explanation for it. I think the only perfect possible steel man, oh my God, I'm stacking layers of
charitability and everything.
Of bullshit. Yeah, it's got to be, someone went up to Trump. He didn't even see it. This is like the Renee Good video. He didn't even watch the thing. He just heard, hey, some people just want this statue to not be taken down. And so he didn't even know what the fuck was going on. That's like the most charitable reading of it. But otherwise, no, it's fucking completely undefendable.
For the same people that want to say that the majority of BLM riots were riots or protests were riots or whatever else. Yeah, I don't know. It just seems, I don't know, because I'm searching, okay? I have the Unite the Right stuff, which I know Kessler got the permit for, who is, I don't think Kitchen or Constantine will fight me on him being a fucking white nationalist. All the promotional material for the Unite the Right rally, some of it is outwardly literally has fucking neo-Nazi symbols and shit on it, and it's all featuring Mike Enoch, fucking Richard Spencer, back when he was mega white nationalist.
David Duke.
Yeah, I just don't know.
Well, here, let me give you one charitable possible explanation. This is in my ignorant phase in 2016, I would go on the Donald, and just because I was so anti-Hillary brain poisoned, I would reading anti-Hillary stuff. And the way that it was portrayed there was not a white nationalist rally, to my knowledge. It was hey, these fucking crazy libtard SJWs are going to take down this statue. Maybe we should go and work on it. And so, yes, there was a lot of promotional stuff that, if you even were paying attention at all, you would see it's fucking crazy. And if you were there, you would be insane not to see all these Nazis. But I can understand that there was some non-zero amount of people there who didn't know before they got there, and that were promoted in a way that they didn't think so. In fact, the propaganda line at the time...
But you would never say that, right? I'm sure there were some people fucking... I don't even know. I'm sure there were some people in some fucking ISIS camp or whatever that had no idea that, or something, but so maybe there were fine people in there. That's just, in every possible way that I look at this, I'm treating Trump not a fucking retard, there's no possible way that you could look at this the night before and go there were good people on both sides of this. It's this was a far right, It was no neo-Nazi. It's not even like far right. It was like a neo-Nazi march with neo-Nazi leaders, and that's just what it was. And there were people there for that. And then, okay. Second question was, are there any? I keep hearing this thing, and I might have even repeated this because I kind of believe this. But is there any evidence that like Antifa showed up in force with baseball bats and was like injuring people or beating people up? Is there video footage? Is any of this? Is there any evidence of this actually happening?
I didn't see any. I think they're just kind of projecting the like Antifa always shows up and beats us up from like the Battle of Berkeley narrative onto every single rally. So anyone that goes and defends and says, "Oh, we hate you. We're gonna shout at you from across the police line," or the people that surrounded the car when he ran over Heather Heyer, it's like, "Oh, that's Antifa." They're being
Is there video
violent.
footage
So,
of
no,
his car being surrounded and him
knowledge.
being like scared about that? Is that?
Not that I know of. No. I'm just saying like that they're projecting the, every protest I've seen on YouTube has been Antifa being violent towards the right. I have not seen any footage of even Antifa at that rally. It could exist. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
I'm also very, it's been about a year since I looked at this, but that video I did a lot of research. I watched a lot of like raw video footage, and I also recommend just watching the Sean, what's his name?
Yeah, he's got like an hour video
Sean
on it.
vids. Yeah,
I'm not about to dive that further, but Constantine is one of the people who pushes I used to be on the left, but then I saw how much they lied. And then this is always like one of the big things that they point to is like how much the media lied about this, which like it seems, Okay.
Well, I mean, the big gotcha is like fucking they pull up the Snopes article, and the Snopes article is like, hey, despite the fact that he didn't say these words verbatim, like it is still very clear that there were not good people on both sides, and therefore this is an untrue statement. So even their like, hey, you're wrong article doesn't prove them right. Like Tim Pool like brought that up and then didn't even read the explanation like one paragraph below because it's fucking stupid. But yeah. There's no defense. So good luck. All right, who's Constantine? Is this like I keep seeing
that he's the guy from Trigonometry or whatever.
I don't know that. I'm not
really. Constantine,
I'm online, but I'm in a bubble.
Good for you then. It's good.
Hey, I'm permabanned on Twitter. How do I get off? You're permabanned from stuff.
Damn, permabanned on the new Twitter. If I knew the answer to that, then Connor would have gotten unbanned. Has Connor gotten unbanned?
I wished. I don't know. I didn't know he was banned, but that makes sense. I haven't seen him in a while. I'm permanently banned for calling for the. I'd say I celebrate the death of a fictional homeless person I made up for a joke, and they're like, "You're calling for violence." So I don't know why that's.
What was the comment you made?
Nazis are. So someone was like, "You celebrated Charlie Kirk's death. If he wasn't that important, like why would you celebrate?" And I said, "Hey, I'd celebrate if the homeless man who keeps sexually harassing me was dead, but he's not important." And they were like, "Oh, you'd celebrate a death of a person." Banned. So
I think Twitter has like an explicit rule against that, so it might have been a bait comment or something maybe. But
God damn it, he got me. That son of a bitch. All right, well, I'll see what I can do. I think I already failed the appeal, but at least it's not YouTube.
Well, good luck. Bye.
All right, have fun in your debate. Bye.
Oh, Jesus. Wait, really? Even Gavin McInnes. Wait. This is August 12th, 2017. This is 2 hours after Heather was hit, or a few hours after. The so-called race war in Charlottesville is all white people. It's more a racism war. Glad hashtag Proud Boys disavowed. Okay. Is there like, what's like the best video footage from start to finish of that happening? Heather was killed at 1:41 Eastern time. Oh, was it? Okay. I should have that. Wait. Oh, so then, do they not have the time zone for this tweet? This tweet must have been in PST then. Because this was at 11. Oh, this is PM too. I'm retarded. Forget it. Never mind. I'm thinking noon, 12 p.m. Just kidding. Forget everything. This PBS documentary has the footage of her being killed. You know what? This is a watch people die clip. We're gonna find this. Show me the footage. I don't trust these sites. Okay. Oh shit.
Go, 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 go.
Is the entire thing like a minute and 9 seconds? There's nothing before this? Or... Damn, okay, and then he backs up. What are you watching? The Heather... What do you think I'm watching? What have we been talking about for the past 2 hours?
We found a group of resistance, a large group marching.
Fuck, even my mom told me that the guy's car was surrounded and he panicked or whatever. But... Jesus. It doesn't seem like it though. It seems like the guy just saw like a crowd of people and fucking... Okay. Okay. Oh my god, a drone captures it. Okay. This thing was driving. I don't know what this guy was doing or whatever, but then the... Wait, this isn't the car, is it? It's the one from behind, or... Oh wait, I actually don't know. Now, hold on. Wait, who linked me this video? This isn't even the... Or wait, actually, hold on. Fuck. I don't think that this red car is plowing through. This is not the car. There's a, it's a Charger that smashes into him from behind, or a Challenger. That smashes into a line of cars. I think it's a white car and then this car, I think. He full-on guns it, hits him from behind, and then backs up and pieces the fuck out at maximum fucking speed. I don't like this video. Oh, fuck. I actually hate this video so much because I wonder how many people saw shit like this, 175K views. Because this video makes it look like if you're the red car, you're trying to work your way through a crowd and people are like attacking you. But that wasn't the case at all. For like 20 seconds beforehand, this red car is moving very slowly and people are moving aside and it's getting through fine. But the reason why it flies forward here is because there's a challenger that comes smashing into them from behind at high speeds that pushes this and the car behind it forward, I think. Like the video you're looking at? Okay, don't go surfing on this website or don't cry to me when you get fucking traumatized. I don't think I'd ever seen that video before, though, until I just looked it up right now. This might be the worst video I've ever seen in my entire life. This makes it look like it was the red car or the white car. What the fuck? Like, this car that's smashed in the back right here is smashed because the car that actually did this is the one that hit this car from behind. Wait, now I'm curious what they show in the frontline video.
Violence before Charlottesville.
Kind of a multicultural
Rob Rundo's group.
Because I should just look for Heather.
He dodged slam to break it. Then at 1:45, the brawling turned into something else. An act of terror.
Oh, there you can see it. Yeah, that's what this is. Okay. Fuck, the idea that this guy... I don't know how many narratives you guys heard about this initially. I had heard that this guy's car was surrounded. He got nervous. I heard that Heather Hayes just died, or Heather Hayer died of a heart attack. It looks like it was just a super premeditated. He knew these marchers were here because these other two cars were already making their way through the crowd just fine. And this guy fucking gunned it. This guy gunned it hardcore into the back of that vehicle. And then he threw it in reverse and he fucking slammed out of there. Yeah, it was like...
Then at 1:45, the brawling turned into something else. An act of terror.
From behind. And then he throws it in reverse and gets the fuck out.
A gray Dodge slammed into a crowd of protesters. 20 people were rushed to the hospital. 32-year-old Heather Hayer was pronounced dead.
Hayer. COVID, by the way, in 2017. What do you think about that? Just kidding. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding.
Did she see him coming?
I used to be a Sargon fan, and I used to believe all that until I started looking at videos and reading stuff much, much later. Yeah.
She was deaf in one ear, so, damn it, I wasn't gonna cry.
I mean, probably would have heard it. I don't think deaf in one ear means you're... I'm sorry, I'm just kidding. I'm being autistic right now. Hold on. Sargon of Akkad. Heather... Hey, I wonder if... Does he even have YouTube videos anymore? God. Sargon of Akkad and Dave Rubin. Gamergate, man. That's the real moment our culture went off the rails. It was Gamergate. I think Sargon might have been the one who went by the heart attack thing, yeah. Okay.
with several neo-Nazis, some of whom were at the Charlottesville rally. But it's also important to recognize these rhetorical traps and make sure that you don't play into their narrative. The further away this event becomes, the harder it is to know the context without watching a video like this, and the easier it becomes to lie about it. And maybe you yourself don't remember exactly what happened. That means, one, when they bring this up, pay attention to the way they framed it. If they say something like, Donald Trump never banned all Muslims from coming into the country, your immediate response can't be, yes he did, because technically he didn't. He just said he wanted to, and then did a travel ban on several predominantly Muslim countries because that was as close as he could get without it immediately being struck down. You can't let them get away with that shit. The second thing you have to do is read the fucking articles. Please, for the love of God, just read the fucking articles. People keep asking me, how do you know so much? I don't. I just read the fucking articles. It's not that hard. It's all on your phone. You stare at it all the time anyway. You can even picture-in-picture Family Guy clips and skip the toilet in the corner, and everyone who doesn't do it will think you're a genius. You'll be the town hero and have lots of sex and your skin will glow and people will move out of the way. Hey, move over. We got a fucking article reader over here. I'm almost at 100,000 subs, which means there's plenty of them to trickle down in my segment, Oops, All Ladders. Today's feature is Downtown Dialogue, who made a great video about voting that mixes street interviews with actionable goals. He seemed to put a lot of effort in, so no one tell him that I would have promoted him if he posted a 20-minute black screen that just said, vote. If you want to be featured on Ladders, email me at thesoypill@gmail.com with the subject line, Ladders, and your channel name. As always, thank you to my patrons, and seeing as it's Pride Month,
The following people are gay.
Ash, Anita Bonghit, Astra Cosmos.
Okay.
Of a statue of Robert E. Lee, 35 others. America and the rest of the world were on a knife edge. The victims were assembled to counter the Unite the Right rally, a demonstration against the proposed removal of a statue of Robert E. Lee, a Confederate general. And the attack acted as a climax to the nation's increasing polarization and paranoia about President Trump's links with the so-called alt-right. At a press conference in the immediate aftermath, President Trump made a series of incendiary comments, including saying that there were very fine people on both sides. Like many, I was horrified and outraged by the fact that instead of trying to bring calm, Trump chose to further inflame a highly volatile situation. But not nearly as horrified and outraged as I was when I later discovered that this was all an elaborate, orchestrated media hoax. In actual fact, at that very press conference, I later discovered that this was all an elaborate, orchestrated...
He links a Politico article here. Trump's comments on white supremacists. Politico. Is this just a this is just a transcript of the August 15th? Okay. Sargon heart attack.
I mean, I remember when...
Oh, I remember this guy. Millennial Woes.
When Charlottesville happened. It was just... I mean, they were apoplectic about what was going on. There were these violent right-wing maniacs just looking for violence. And then when the car thing happened, it was just like a gift from God for them. Because that's the evidence.
Just to jump in on the car thing, as I understand it, I thought Heather Hayes or Hare or whatever her name was, I thought she died of a heart attack.
Yes, it looks like what happened is that he was shocked by seeing the car crash happening and had a heart attack. It's a really sort of... I know, it's horrible, but it does seem a very dramatic reaction to a car crash.
It's more that the alt-right are being blamed for someone having a heart attack. Someone in tremendously bad physical condition has a heart attack, and suddenly the alt-right has murdered someone. This is something I'm surprised the alt-right doesn't make a big deal out of, to be honest. You know, I would have thought that would...
Well, we try to.
Yeah.
Well, exactly, we try to. Or they in America do. I mean, they're trying to... But of course, then you get accused of politicizing a tragedy. Well, and of course, every side accuses the... Yeah, I mean, everyone does this. You know, it's a sort of natural thing to do. And you accuse the other, oh, you're politicizing a tragedy. But in this case... they really didn't do anything wrong.
But the alt-right, the mainstream media could just have
no one did anything wrong,
policy of non-engagement, and that would be more successful for kettling the alt-right than it would be promoting them. But, I mean, Richard Spencer is only a household name because of the media. Otherwise, I mean, like, is Richard Spencer controlled opposition? I'm genuinely curious.
I certainly don't think that he is.
Everything that the alt-right wants is within the grasp of the alt-right. There are structures in place that the alt-right can manipulate to their own advantage, and there are arguments with people who will be opposed to them. You've got
demonstrated media hoax.
Wait. Aerial footage shows Charlottesville attackers' attempted escape and troopers' relentless pursuit. Whoa. Incest? What was that?
It installs in minutes, and if it doesn't deliver the best shower experience you've ever had, we'll give you all your money back.
92% of our customers see better skin and hair in just weeks. So
What?
head to askin.com to filter your shower water with us today.
Oh my God.
White supremacist James Fields Jr. beginning to serve 2 life terms this week for driving his car into counter-demonstrators after the Unite the Right rally in 2000.
I linked the helicopter POV. It's shit, but both helicopter pilots died that day in a crash? What? Like unrelated or...
2017.
Only on News 4, we're now able to show you some of the key evidence prosecutors used to argue for that life prison term.
Northern Virginia Bureau Chief Julie Carey joins us with a view of the chaos from that day that we haven't seen before. Julie.
And Pat, Leon, it is the view from above, from the Virginia State Police chopper, the chopper that crashed later that fateful day in Charlottesville, killing both on board. You'll hear one of those troopers' voices in this story. But what that video shows is that in his final hours, he was determined not to let James Fields get away.
Hold on.
Video from the ground. The Unite the Right protesters had cleared out of Charlottesville, the counter demonstrators marching together in a joyful mood until this. Listen as the state troopers watching from above see James Fields' car barreling down 4th Street.
Oh my God, that car just drove through him. What? Really?
What? This guy sounds like he's like 17.
In the chopper, Trooper Burke Bates and another state trooper. Their sudden mission is clear in their conversation, keeping Fields' car in their sights, making sure he doesn't get away, keeping their camera trained on him.
Yeah, I need left. Nope, I got the car.
Command to all units, there's a car driving around near the parking garage.
I lost him. No, he's right underneath us. I just lost him.
Stay on it.
I lost him.
And we're trying to get back on him.
Where'd he go?
I got him.
Where?
We're back on him. It's about 2 o'clock.
They notice a police car in pursuit on the ground.
Not
Fields
suspicious
keeps
at all.
driving, the broken bumper hanging off the front of the car. The car that just minutes earlier struck and killed Heather Heyer and injured 24 others. The state police chopper continues to follow Fields as he pulls over, starts up again, the bumper falling off. Then Fields finally brings the Dodge to a stop.
He's got his hands out the door, or out the window.
3 hours later, with Bates and now a different trooper on board.
Wait, does this look like somebody had the same character in the character creator and like stretched the head?
Lieutenant Jay Cullen, the chopper began to spin and crash to the ground.
Jesus Christ, guys.
Chopper began to spin and up.
He's got his hands out the door, or out the window.
3 hours later, with Bates and now a different trooper on board, Lieutenant Jay Cullen, the chopper began to spin and crash to the ground, killing both men on board. Some of Bates' final hours spent making sure a racist killer was brought to justice.
Well.
All right.
It's
so
not all
that's
right.
one pair of glasses.
Okay, anyway, sorry. Back to this.
All an elaborate orchestrated media hoax. In actual fact, at that very press conference, President Trump made it clear that his comments were describing peaceful protesters who opposed the removal of the statue, saying, "I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and white nationalists because they should be condemned totally." But the media cut his comments out of context and ran headline after headline claiming he was defending the very people he just condemned. His comments out of context and ran headline after headline claiming he was
Okay. This is Trump defends white nationalist protesters. The Atlantic. Fuck. Does this article not exist? Hello? Nope, we got it. Okay. President Trump defended the white nationalists who protested in Charlottesville on Tuesday, saying they included some very fine people while expressing sympathy for their demonstration against the removal of a statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee. I mean, this is true, right? Nothing is incorrect about this article. I'm trying to think of how I would phrase this.
defending the very people he'd just condemned. To this day, millions of people believe this lie. Last week, I saw it again here in Britain, when the Labour Party clipped comment by Matt Goodwin, Reform's candidate in the upcoming Gorton and Denton by-election, out of context to claim he'd criticised Manchester when he was in fact criticising the Conservative Party conference, which had been held in Manchester. Criticised Manchester.
This is what Reform's latest candidate thinks about where he's standing to represent. In his own words. 3.
I was lucky enough or unfortunate enough to be in Manchester a few days ago, and the energy in this room is 10 times what it was in Manchester. So, congratulations.
Does anybody have a clip of what this full... where this is from? I was referring to the Dying Tory Party conference that was held in Manchester, as you know.
Times.
Matt Goodwin conference? Is that what you call?
Need to stand.
Okay, it's this one. Right in the beginning. Oh, okay.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, conference. I was lucky enough or unfortunate enough to be in Manchester a few days ago, and the energy in this room is 10 times what it was in Manchester. So, congratulations.
Where was he a few days ago?
I've never had this many people in any of my university lectures, by the way. But in all seriousness, you should not be here.
Was it a Tory party conference? Is that... I'm guessing he was at the Tory conference?
You should not be here. Why do I say that? I say that
because we shouldn't have these problems today in society that would necessitate you guys to come out.
Because had the ruling class in this country understood what Brexit was really all about, lowering immigration, leveling up the country, controlling the borders, pushing back on tax and regulation, reforming the institutions, giving people a voice.
Okay, whatever.
Manchester, millions of people believe this lie. Last week, I saw it again here in Britain, when the Labour Party clipped comment by Matt Goodwin, Reform's candidate in the upcoming Gorton and Denton by-election, out of context to claim he'd criticised Manchester when he was in fact criticising the Conservative Party conference, which had been held in Manchester. This time, the media didn't have to lie. Our politicians did it for them. These dirty tricks are sadly part of the ugly game of politics.
I feel like we're putting a lot of things together here. Like, this is like when you're talking about lies and misinformation, I mean, none of it is good. But this is like this sounds like a campaign thing, right? Like these guys are campaigning against each other, so they're taking quotes and everything. I mean, like I guess technically, I guess I'm assuming that he wasn't actually talking about Manchester. He just meant the energy in the conference, the Tory conference he was in Manchester or whatever. But like, this is not like statements on COVID or lockdowns or the truthfulness of the media or whatever. Also, it's a political party making one statement against another. But okay.
The Conservative Party conference, which had been held in Manchester. This time the media didn't have to lie. Our politicians did it for them. These dirty tricks are sadly part of the ugly game of politics. More troublingly, they are now increasingly spreading to the arena of public debate more broadly. During my appearance on Question Time last week, the usually decent Labour Minister Douglas Alexander tried to pull a similar move on me. Unable to respond to my criticism of his government's failure on immigration and the attempt to demonize millions of normal British people who dared to notice that failure, he instead tried to suggest that I'm a bigot. You said Rishi Sunak isn't English because he's a brown Hindu, was his retort. This is a skillful lie on several levels, the purpose of which was to deflect attention away from his and his party's failings. Here's how it works. First, he deliberately concealed from the viewer that my comments were made in a discussion of the difference between British and English identity, so that it looks like I was saying Rishi Sunak doesn't belong.
I don't like how the Bonger people, you guys are stuck like 10 years in the past. You can't just be racist like we can in America now. But like, he's making it, I don't even know what the fuck, like if I wasn't listening, or I guess I would have to go back to attuning my ears to like the dog whistles or whatever. The comment was whether or not you could assume an English ethnicity, or whether or not English is a distinct ethnicity that's different than British, which is just a national identity. I don't even know if I feel like you guys are too scared to even use the word ethnicity or race. I feel like I don't hear it at all, but you're like clearly alluding to it a lot, but you never actually say it. Even in that conversation, because I watched like the 10-minute cut of him having a conversation with that other guy about Sunak. I think one time maybe somebody said ethnic or ethnicity or race, but otherwise you guys just don't actually say the word. It was very fucking weird.
Alexander tried to pull a similar move on me. Unable to respond to my criticism of his government's failure on immigration and the attempt to demonize millions of normal British people who dared to notice that failure, he instead tried to suggest that I'm a bigot. You said Rishi Sunak isn't English because he's a brown Hindu, was his retort. This is a skillful lie on several levels. The purpose of...
Like, that's kind of true.
Bigot. You said Rishi Sunak isn't English because he's a brown Hindu, was...
Like, I don't think brown people could be English for Constantine, right? That's true, right?
His retort. This is a skillful lie on several levels, the purpose of which was to deflect attention away from his and his party's failings. Here's how it works. First, he deliberately concealed from the viewer that my comments were made in a discussion of the difference between British and English identity, so that it...
Like when you say British and English identity, that makes it sound like these are two similar things. So like a British identity would be if you're on the island of Great Britain or across the UK, I guess. And then an English identity is if you're from England, but they're not. You're talking about a different thing in kind. You're talking about a national versus like an ethnic identity, or cultural or whatever versus an ethnic identity. I don't know if he ever says that in this, though.
It looks like I was saying Rishi Sunak doesn't belong in Britain. That's not what I was saying. Second, he failed to mention that in that very same conversation, I explained that my son, born to two immigrant parents like Sunak, is also, in my view, not English. No matter how evil Douglas Alexander thinks I am, even he could hardly accuse me of being racist against my own children. Third, he failed to mention that Fraser Nelson, the journalist with whom we were having the debate, wrote an article afterwards describing my view, with which he disagrees, as a perfectly fair point. Fourth, he failed to mention that Fraser was the one that brought up Rishi Sunak, not me. I don't go around discussing who's English and who isn't. And fifth, finally, and most importantly, he didn't mention that prior to being elected, Rishi Sunak described himself as British Indian, saying, British Indian is what I tick on the census. We have a category for it. I am thoroughly British. This is my home and my country. But my religious and cultural heritage is Indian. My wife is Indian. These 5 steps is how you go from...
Okay, but what do you mean when you say English? I don't know why he doesn't say that. I wonder if I ask him that, if he'll admit to that. Or what does English mean to you? Is there a necessary racial or ethnic component to it? Question mark. It's so weird. I don't know why they can't just say it.
From two people having a reasonable discussion about their views of what it means to be English and British, to pretending that one of them is evil. Even if you disagree with what I said or thought I didn't articulate my point well, this is dishonest framing. Why do they do this? Because it's easier than addressing the arguments I'm making. On Question Time, I made 2 basic points. One is that net zero is industrial suicide, which has destroyed our economy and produced zero growth since 2008. The second is that both Labour and Conservative governments have imported more people into Britain over their respective terms and power than had come between 1066 and 1950. Can they deny this? No. Can they dispute the fact? No. So all they have are the smears and the insults. Over the last few days, there's been an attempt by a few non-entities on social media to have me banned from further Question Time appearances. These people still think it's...
UK watershed laws, I'm pretty sure, ban any racial conversation before 9 p.m. too, so it might be a way to get around the law. That's a meme, right? I don't even know.
2016 when these tactics worked. Let me explain something to you. You've had the monopoly on the microphone for a long time, and it's made you lazy, and it's made you arrogant. More than 2 million people now watch and listen to Trigonometry. 100,000 read my Substack every week. Our show is part of a massive ecosystem of alternative media, which is the reason the legacy media is dying. You can keep trying to cancel people from the conversation to maintain your echo chamber. But even if you succeed, all that will achieve is driving more people into our arms. If you really hate my views and what I stand for, there's only one thing you can do. Make better arguments. Good luck. You're going to need it. One final...
It's not a meme. Watershed Broadcasting. Okay, I don't even, okay, Jesus. What the fuck?
Final thing. A lot of people on social media over the last few days have called me a grifter.
Race, heritage, and British/English identity. What do white and ethnic minority adults in England think? White adults born in the UK. Ethnic minority adults in England who were born in the UK are much more likely than their white counterpart to say they feel a greater British than English identity. Which, if any, of the following best describes the way you think of yourself? White adults born in the UK. English, not British. More English than British. Equally English and British. Holy shit. More British than English, and British not English. Ethnic minority adults born in the UK. English not British, okay, 4%. More English than British, 6%. Equally English and British, 29%. More British than English, and British not English. And then ethnic minority adults born outside the UK. And then British not English or other, okay. Are Britishness and Englishness based on family heritage, being born and raised, or on citizenship? First respondents, which of the three descriptions come close to their view on Englishness and Britishness? A heritage conception. That to be English and British, you have to have family heritage going back a certain number of generations. A cultural conception. That to be English/British, you have to have been born and or raised here, but that you don't need family heritage, or a legal conception. Okay. Who can be considered British? To be British, you have to have family heritage going back a certain number of generations. Who can be considered English? 32%. Okay. Being British/English is something you can be by being born and or raised in the UK, even if your parents are not British. English and who can be British or English is tied here. Okay. Okay. What is this? Don't care about this. Don't care about this. Don't care about this. This.
And because of that, I'd just like to remind you can find my work at www.konstantinkissin.com and of course trigonometry at triggerpod.co.uk. Most people think they're informed. In reality, they're selectively informed. Modern media doesn't just tell stories. It quietly decides which ones you never hear about.
Okay. Are we gonna do you think, do they still talk about the grooming gang stuff? I feel like I hear more about the small boats right now when it comes to immigration shit. Oh shit, this was Ben Shapiro's take on this 8 years ago. August 16th. So this was the day after Trump's comments.
Trump did is he played a double game in his press conference. He said, I'm not talking about neo-Nazis and white supremacists. I think that they're bad, right? But he said also, there are a lot of good people who showed up at these rallies. And then he also said that he didn't know what the alt-right was. So somebody asked him specifically about the alt-right, and he said he didn't know what it was. So we're going to play all of these clips, and you're going to see that Donald Trump provided the alt-right most of what it wanted. The alt-right wants to be known not as a white supremacist group. They want their face to the public to be, we're just defending Western civilization, not white supremacism, even if they are actual white supremacists. And they want the President of the United States to lend them credence, as though they're a bunch of very fine people. This is what the alt-right wants. Okay, we talked on Monday about exactly what the alt-right is. The alt-right's basic creed is that Western civilization is inherently bound up with ethnicity and race, and that white people were the builders of Western civilization, and therefore people of other races and cultures cannot adapt to Western civilization. Right? That is the basic argument of the alt-right. Trump knows that because his chief strategist at the White House is Steve Bannon, who helped promulgate the alt-right and said that Breitbart was in fact a platform for the alt-right, direct quote from Steve Bannon. But Trump played stupid, and in doing so, he gave the alt-right what they wanted. He focused on the left. Again, that's fine, but if you're going to focus on the left, you can't poo-poo the alt-right. Okay, this is the problem on both sides. The left is saying everything he said about Antifa is wrong, and the right is saying everything that he said about Antifa is right, and therefore he's right, or therefore he's wrong. No, he's right about Antifa, and he's totally wrong about the alt-right, and even granting them a smidgen of credibility is morally disgusting. Okay, and that's what he did yesterday. To pretend otherwise is to ignore that when Barack Obama did the same thing to Black Lives Matter, the right went nuts. And rightly so. When Barack Obama granted credence to the people who were burning down Ferguson and Baltimore, the right rightly went nuts. We went nuts. As well we should have. We said he was vague. And let's say, wait, he condemned the people rioting. And we said that wasn't enough. He needed to condemn what they were rioting about. Okay, but President Trump really tried hard to soft pedal this stuff yesterday. So he started off by defending his statement on Saturday. Why exactly, he was asked, why did it take till Monday for you to say neo-Nazis and the KKK and neo-Confederates were bad? Why didn't you just say it on Saturday? Here was his answer.
I had to see the facts, unlike a lot of reporters.
Oh, that hurts even more. I had to see the facts. So what did you see? Now he can't claim ignorance.
I didn't know David Duke was there. I wanted to see the facts. And the facts, as they started coming out, were very well stated. In fact, everybody said his statement was beautiful. If he would have made it sooner, that would have been good. I couldn't have made it sooner because I didn't know all of the facts. Frankly, people still don't know all of the facts.
Okay, so this is nonsense. Everyone knew all the facts virtually immediately. Antifa got violent, and then an alt-right protester drove a car into a crowd of people.
I don't know where the Antifa violence was, but okay.
Who included a bunch of innocent non-Antifa people, and the alt-right people were violent as well. Okay, so he says he had to wait for the facts. First of all, you know that's a tell, okay? Trump has never, ever in his entire life had to wait for the facts. This is a guy who spends a year proclaiming that Barack Obama, without evidence, was born in Kenya. This is a guy who goes out preemptively and declares Muslim terrorist attacks before all the facts are in. Okay, some of that is not a huge problem, but to pretend that he is the considerate arbiter of the facts is just a joke, okay? That is not a good excuse from President Trump. It's obviously not a good excuse. He repeated, it must have been 10 times in a 3-minute segment, how he was waiting for all of the facts. Such nonsense, such absolute nonsense, especially since we know from Eliana Johnson over at the Washington Post. By the way, Eliana is kind of conservative, okay? She's a Claremont fellow. When I was a Claremont fellow, Eliana Johnson, who writes for the Washington Post, she reported that Trump had a statement exactly the same as the one on Monday on his desk on Saturday. He was standing with it right there, and he went off script and decided not to say it. Okay, so there's another reason that Trump didn't want to do this, and that's because Trump is happy to pander to the alt-right. He was always happy to pander to the alt-right. During the campaign, he pandered to the alt-right. He continued to pander to the alt-right because he thinks that they're his biggest supporters and they're nice to him, so he has to soft pedal them. And he did that again yesterday. He was asked specifically about the alt-right, okay? The alt-right, I've defined it now 1,000 times, and they defined it themselves. Richard Spencer was at this rally. Okay, Jared Taylor, his people were at this rally. The Daily Stormer, neo-Nazis, were at this rally. It was actually pitched like this, okay? The ad promoting the Unite the Right rally, it was designed to evoke a fascist poster, what John Podhoretz writes. He's correct. Okay, it invited speakers like Mike Enoch, who hosts a podcast called The Daily Show Up. Augustus Invictus, an alt-right figure who once said, I've prophesied for years I was born for a great war, that if I had not witnessed the coming of the Second American Civil War, I would begin it myself. And Christopher Cantwell, who called himself a fascist, along with Johnny Monoxide, who calls himself fasci. Okay, the march's organizer, Jason Kessler, described the views of the people who showed up. He said, you don't give a damn about white people. You people are implementing policies which are displacing us in our home countries, and we will not be allowed to survive. Okay, the goal of this rally was extraordinarily clear, so much so that Gavin McInnes, the head of the Proud Boys, and a guy with whom I've been friendly, Gavin said, I will not go to this rally because it's infused with white supremacists and neo-Nazis. Okay, the alt-right was a group of people who decided to show up for this rally because they are part of this movement. And the alt-right, and here's Trump being asked about the alt-right, and here is Trump pretending he doesn't know what it is.
When you say the alt-right, define alt-right to me. You define it. Go ahead. Define it for me. Come on, let's go. Define it.
This is after Bannon was part of his campaign and everything to get elected and everything too, right? So it's just crazy.
Define it for me. Come on, let's go. Define it for me. It's not a fight. How about you define it? How about you say, if by the alt-right you mean X, then I condemn it. If by the alt-right you mean people who like memes, I don't. Right? How about he could do that? But the defensiveness about the alt-right is really, truly incredible. And then it gets even worse. And I'll show you the even worse part in just a second. But first, I want to tell you about Upside.com. So right now, Upside.com is the best travel site on the world. You get phones. They know that we say allies are relying on. He says that he's condemned neo-Nazis and white supremacists, but here's what he says. I've condemned Code Ben, so they know that we sent you. Okay, so as I say, he went out of his way not to condemn the alt-right. And then here's the part that a lot of his allies are relying on. He says that he's condemned neo-Nazis and white supremacists, but here's what he says.
I've condemned neo-Nazis. I've condemned many different groups, but not all of those people were neo-Nazis. Believe me, not all of those people were white supremacists by any stretch.
Okay, so combine those two statements. He doesn't know what the alt-right is, and not all of those people were neo-Nazis and white supremacists. That is a defense of the alt-right. That is an attempt to paint the alt-right as non-white supremacist, non-neo-Nazi. That is what that is, okay? And then it got worse. He said, he specifically cited the Friday night Torchlight March, okay?
Hold on. What did he do specifically? Hold on, guys. I need to warn you, you need to be strapped into your seats, guys. Strap in, tie your heads up so you don't get whiplash from this. Hold on.
Where you had Richard Spencer, and you had Christopher Caldwell, and you had all these people literally chanting in the streets, carrying tiki torches and shouting, "Jews will not replace us." Right? This is what he had to say about that particular rally.
And if you reported it accurately, you would say. And you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group, excuse me, I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name.
Okay, so again, this is really quite despicable when you look at the actual tape. Okay, so here is the tape of the protests. Okay, this is what the protests that he is talking about were filled with very fine people. This is the tape of the protest.
Very fine people, very fine people.
So this would be clip 3. This is what that actually looked like.
Hold up.
Salute right there? Yeah, it's nice. There are a bunch of those going around. Screw White Lives Matter. Okay, Vice has some pretty good tape of all this. They have a 22-minute documentary they brought out about this. The first 10 minutes is really stunning material. The rest of it is Vice's bias, but the first 10 minutes of this is stunning material. Here's what the rally actually looked like on Friday night.
Jews will not replace us! Blood and soil! Blood and soil! Who's drink our streets? Who's drink our streets?
Hold up.
Protesters. So you can see in the center there, those are the anti-white supremacist protesters. And there's some tape from the actual fights that got started.
What just happened?
They based me.
Who?
I don't know.
You can pause it there for 1 second, okay? So, number one, you see that Friday night, that was not a lot of good people. There weren't some very fine people marching. And by the way, if you find yourself...
There weren't very fine people. There weren't... Wait, what?
...in a march, just a tip to people. If you find yourself in a march where people start shouting, Jews will not replace us, maybe you should leave. Maybe you should leave. If you're not a piece of garbage, maybe you should leave. Why is it that even the people who are alt-right friendly, even people who ally with the alt-right from time to time, looked at this Unite the Right event and decided not to show? Why?
And then, but somehow, what happened? September 10th, 2024. Fine people on both sides lie. Stand back and stand by, lie. Bloodbath, lie. Where are the ABC moderators fact-checking? Or are their heads too far up Kamala Harris's ass to speak at this point? Ben did one of the most comprehensive mainstream-ish, I guess, if you do Daily Show, like breakdowns of why this very fine people thing was what Donald Trump meant. And now, 5 years later or whatever the fuck, actually, that was a total lie spread by the media. Motherfucker, you were the media that apparently spread that fucking lie. It's so crazy, dude.
Why is that? There's a reason for that. Even people like Mike Cernovich, who spent a year propping up the alt-right. Why is it the people like Mike Cernovich that I'm not showing up? Why do you think? Was it because it was filled with very fine people, as President Trump says? There were a lot of very fine people. Okay, also important to notice on this tape, the guy who's wiping his face off here is getting Christopher Caldwell, open racist, says that President...
Also, look at the difference, too, in like coverage stuff, right? I think they're biased, but, here's 10 minutes of a Vice documentary. Here's video footage of the day before. Here are quotes from other people who wouldn't show up. Here are the people. Here are things they've said. Here they said, as opposed to... I guess I shouldn't say that. Maybe Ben Shapiro's show today is as... He incorporates as much stuff. Maybe he does, and it's not just all, Trump said this, let's dick suck.
He wishes President Trump were more racist, and he's very upset that President Trump would allow his daughter to marry a Jew. And he was maced here. Again, Christopher Caldwell is a disgusting piece of garbage. But macing people is not something that you get to do in the United States for peacefully protesting, even for evil causes. Here's some more of the tape from Vice.
We're here obeying the law. We're doing everything that we're supposed to do, trying to express opinions. And the criminals are over there getting their way. And that is a foundational problem in our society. And whatever you think of my opinions, that's going to be something that puts you in danger.
Yeah, and that is because this city is run by Jewish communists and criminals.
We did not initiate force against anybody. We're not nonviolent. We'll kill these people if we have to.
Okay, so Christopher Caldwell, who you see saying that he'll kill people if he has to. But again, this is why Antifa's activities are really bad. Okay, Antifa is just granting credibility to the alt-right, saying, "Oh, we're just here for defensive purposes. We're just here for defensive." Okay, so a lot of
I don't know where the Antifa fighting is yet. I'm still waiting to see that. I did see that one guy who got maced, though, and he said communists did it. I didn't see who maced him or any videos of that. And I thought I read earlier that there were people on the alt-right side that had brought, like, mace and bats and shit. But maybe it was Antifa as well. But I didn't see any arrests. I didn't see any videos of this happening. I didn't see any police reports or hospital things or...
Sorry, almost cursed there. A lot of really crappy people on both sides. Okay, that is true. But it is unfair for the President of the United States to say that there were a lot of very fine people who were marching on Friday night. There were not, or if there were, I would like to see the evidence of it. That does not mean that everyone who opposes the Robert E. Lee statue coming down is a bad person. Okay, I've said that. I started the show with that. I think that Trump is not wrong about some of the things he says about Confederate statuary. But when he says there are a lot of very fine people, and oh, what's the alt-right? I've never heard of it. What does it do? Okay, that is really, really gross, and you can see why people are reacting so negatively to it. The President of the United States has a moral responsibility to say not only that white supremacists and neo-Nazis are terrible and believe terrible things, but that the alt-right is terrible, particularly because they claim him as an ally. That does matter. It does matter. When people claim you as an ally, it becomes more incumbent on you to disassociate from that.
He's a left-wing...
Okay, so the takeaway from the media here is that This
is how many years later? Oh, this is 2020? Oh, when everybody had to come around for election time. So this would be 3 years later, is Ben Shapiro in this video.
He is defending white supremacists. Okay, Joe Biden today tweeted out, there's no other way to put it, the president of the United States refused to disavow white supremacists on the debate stage last night. By the way, Joe Biden then put up a picture of Kyle Rittenhouse, the 17-year-old from Kenosha who shot 3 people, probably in self-defense, by all available evidence. There's zero evidence that Kyle Rittenhouse is a white supremacist. Not some, zero. Like, as in none. Zero, zip, zilch. Joe Biden is calling Kyle Rittenhouse a white supremacist. When Joe Biden jumps in...
To be clear or fair, I don't necessarily like the video, but the one video he's talking about, I'm pretty sure was condemning white supremacy violence. And then I think they had like a lot of videos of protests and stuff. And I think Rittenhouse pops up there. I don't think it was like just a picture of Rittenhouse labeling him white supremacist, but I could see how somebody could watch that video and have that takeaway. It's not quite as bad as what Ben is saying, but probably not a good way for that video to be framed.
He says, you know, the Proud Boys. Okay, the Proud Boys are probably what you would call alt-right. They're not overtly white supremacist, the Proud Boys. The Proud Boys can get violent. They are not a group that anybody should be associated with. I got a lot of problems with the Proud Boys. They are not overtly white supremacist. They're not. In fact, the founders of the Proud Boys disassociated from the Proud Boys, like Gavin McInnes.
This was actually true in the founding. I think the Proud Boys for the first few years tried to stay away from explicit, like, ethno-nationalist stuff. Like, I think they were trying to be a bit different than, like, the Bannon, alt-right, all of that sphere of stuff. They just wanted to be like a far right kind of extremist group, but not like the weird like Jews control the world and we're only for white people and everything. That was one of the reasons why Gavin said he didn't want anybody going there as a Proud Boy or anything like that.
He tried, I believe, to disassociate from the Proud Boys when he thought that they were that they were associating too closely with white supremacists. In any case, you don't have to defend the Proud Boys. And the bottom line here is that I think the Proud Boys are a bad group. Okay, bottom line here is that if you actually read the exchange that happened right there, if you read the exchange, what you will see is that Trump repeatedly says, sure, I'm willing to condemn white supremacists. Here is the actual exchange. Again, Wallace, are you willing to condemn white supremacists and militia groups? Sure. And to say they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland. Okay, so first of all, in Kenosha, that was not a white supremacist group. In Portland, Patriot Prayer is not a white supremacist group. So the basis of the question is in and of itself false. It is not a true statement. And Trump correctly says, I'm prepared to do it, but I'd say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing. And I'm willing to do anything I want to see peace. And then Wallace, being again, we'll get to Wallace in just 1 second. Wallace, who was garbage last night, really bad.
Fucking garbage.